right. All right, man, I love that spot. And our music. Thank you, Alex. What a great piece of music. It always gets my blood going and ready for our stream, our podcast. Welcome to the HEF podcast. That is the podcast of the Home Education Foundation. The Home Education Foundation is an organization that was started by our beloved Brenda Dickinson, who back in the day decided that why don't we have this already? The right of every parent to just teach and raise their own children. Why is it that we must, by law, abdicate our children over to another entity to raise and teach? Parents should have this right directly, spelled out in statute for themselves. So she and her husband, Craig Dickinson, worked together with Daniel Webster, and at that time, it was not popular. It was one of those things where to homeschool, you were hiding your children. You didn't let them go out during daylight hours, which sounds like some sort of futuristic sci-fi world. But no, that was the 1980s and 90s. And yet, here we are. She fought hard. She worked. She has been the voice of parents in the Capitol since that very moment. And her and her husband, Craig, started the Home Education Foundation just after that victory in 1985 to secure the right of every parent to teach and raise their own children, spelled out in statute, the way that they see fit, to set their own standards, to make their own program. And we called those home education programs. And so they called it the Home Education Foundation. And we carry that work on that she started, then her and Craig started. We carry that work on today, and we carry that torch forward, and we're so thankful. So we start every one of our podcasts remembering that, because if you don't remember your roots, you don't remember where you came from, it can really impact where you go from there. And a lot of people today have woken up to this trend of homeschooling, and they just think that it's automatic. Because we're American, we have that right. It just exists. Of course we have that right. And they don't understand how it was fought for and how it's still fought for today. So we keep that memory alive. And we keep this podcast going because that is what we do. We keep the fight alive. We have a brand new design for our donation match challenge coin. So what we usually say here is we also thank parents in the free state of Florida for their support. Last year, we started our first annual donation match challenge, and this year is our second annual donation match challenge. And so if you don't know what that is, we have a private donor who has offered to match a donation from around the state as home education families from around the state donate or pledge their donations at flhef.org/support. All of the donations that are new that come in count toward this challenge. And so whenever we hit that threshold that they've put aside, a $6,000 match, when we hit that, then it triggers over the match challenge. And that is what it's all about for us in the month of August. And I know you guys you're busy. We've been helping fight over Bright Futures issues, and we've been helping fight over sports issues. And man, someone is trying to get to play ball tomorrow. And I know all about it. I know you're busy. And I know maybe this isn't the best time for us to do our donation match challenge. We might have to revisit that, but it's what we've got so far. And I hope that you enjoyed this. This will be the new challenge coin. So if you don't know, if you are one of the participants during this time period, you will get one of a handful of challenge coins that gets sent to you as a thank you. And it's a commemoration for those who participate in this event with us each year. It's a special way of us saying thank you to you. A reminder, you can go to your homeschool co-ops and you can pull out your challenge coin to show others and see if they have one and see who gets left out. That's what we do in the Capitol, is we go around to the different representatives and senators' offices, and they have all of their challenge coins that they've collected from all the organizations that they work with and sponsor bills for. And it's a badge of honor for them to have one from us. And we hope that it's a badge of honor for you to have one as well. We also want to say thank you to our top sponsors, Arete, FPEA, Fisher Precious Metals, and TBHC Group. If you're unaware, we do have some top sponsors. They are organizations that are either known to homeschooling or are started and founded by those who absolutely love our home education laws and they want to see it thrive. And so they come in and help support us. We don't have any mega corporations behind us. There's no big market of industry money that just pours into us. We're supported by those either organizations or families who believe in the work that we do. And we're thankful. So we always want to mention them. And today we have again with us, as I hope always until we can't, Brenda Dickinson. Thank you for being with us for our podcast today.
I love it. Thank you for letting me come.
Oh, you're always invited. Absolutely. I thought today would be an interesting, we could set aside some time and do something interesting with the podcast and talk about the Home Education Foundation and talk about the nonprofit that we have, HEF Connect, and perhaps how they work together. But more importantly, some of the work that we do, people might not know about. Because I constantly run into people who are like, I didn't even know you existed. We've been trying to get this problem solved. We've been trying to get help on this, and we can't find anyone. And I'm like, well, the Home Education Foundation has been here for almost 40 years. So here we are, still doing it. But it's dawned on me that a lot of people don't know. And in doing the work with you over the last several years, especially this year, there were a lot of people who came out after the bill was already headed to the governor's desk. And they were like, we have problems with this bill. We want to talk about this bill. Help us understand how this impacts us. And we had been talking about the bill for months and advocating for certain language to be in the bill. There are parts that they took out of the bill that we advocated for them to put back into the bill to protect parents' rights in education, specifically home education. And it dawned on me that a lot of people might think that those are the only fight that we had, or that was the only thing that we were embroiled in. And yet there are so many other bills that we also constantly watch. Not all of them make it to the finish line. And then beyond that, there's this idea that people asked me after session, they were like, so what are you guys going to do now that session's over? And I'm like, what do you mean? What are we going to do? They're like, and I see,
trying to help people in the bill.
yeah, people are going on vacation and doing things. And I'm like, what is that word? Like, I don't understand this thing you call vacation. What is that? It's almost as if we get busier after the bills launch, not less busy. It just shifts. It shifts to advocacy work. It shifts to all the parents with questions. It shifts to the counties making new policies and, oh, you can't do that one. Oh, I see what you're trying to do, but you can't do this to parents, and helping thread some of those needles and be on calls and walk parents through certain situations and advocate for them. Specifically this year, a lot of sports issues, a lot of Bright Futures issues too. Nothing really changed in Bright Futures, but the personnel changed. So maybe it's just a matter of, there are some hiccups here or there. One of them seems to be that a student was in a certain county and then moved to another county at the same time that they shifted to PEP. So it looks like that caused a glitch in how their records get processed. And so little things like that we uncover and discover in the process of kind of peeling things back and trying to help escalate certain cases to uncover those anomalies and find solutions to them. But it's a lot. And I'm thankful that a lot of the advocacy stuff kind of peels back right around where session begins. Because if session and the advocacy were both hot and heavy, and sometimes they just do what you do. But if they were both hot and heavy at the same time, it's a lot, man. And I think that a lot of people don't realize how much it is. And I know that you know. So we're going to go back down memory lane a little bit. I'd love to hear some of those moments from you that don't make it to the history books. They don't make it to the media newspapers because it wasn't so-and-so's bill that made it. There's some interesting challenges I know you've shared with me before that, don't make headlines because the problem didn't become real. And while that's a breath of fresh air, circumventing some of those, problems that got avoided and didn't become a problem are really hard to fundraise to solve because they didn't happen. And a lot of people don't know how they got to not happen. So
Right.
I would love for you to share, from your robust history, share some of that with us today.
Well, I'm not sure where to start. There's such a long list of them.
Yeah.
I think right after the bill initially passed in 1985,
Okay.
there was a sunset provision put on it, which meant that in 2 years, the bill would come up for review. And we got it passed with that provision in there because nobody knew what home education was. And we didn't have any, except for Dan Webster, and there were a few people that kind of understood parental rights. But you have to understand that the Democrats control the House, Senate, and governor's office. And the teachers' unions were big contributors toward their campaigns. So they pretty much fell in line with whatever the teachers' union said. But there was a willingness to, with the parents that showed up at the Capitol with their well-behaved children, and that was a significant surprise to the legislators, to give these parents a chance. And so we got it passed, but we came back 2 years later and had to repass the bill. So it had to start at the beginning and go through all the committee meetings again in the House and the Senate. And that second year, there were a couple of representatives being really pushed by the school districts to tighten down the law because we didn't have enough accountability. So the superintendents wanted to choose what teachers would do the evaluation. They wanted to have semi-annual evaluations turned in. There were 5 different provisions, and I'd have to go back and look at my notes to determine what those things were, but those were the main things right off the top of my head. The superintendents wanted to control what happened in a home education program. So we had to fight against those things. And the thing that happens so many times is what else happens in the country or in the state at the same time influences what the legislators want to do.
Right.
So that particular year, there was a parent who had drowned their 2-year-old or 3-year-old in the toilet in their home. So all of this was in the media, and they were sure that parents were home doing all these horrible things to their children. And so they had to be sure that they made sure somebody was overseeing all these programs. So we fought really, really hard to prevent that becoming part of the law. And we were really blessed in being able to go and talk to legislators. And believe it or not, the means by which I lobbied was to be proactive in trying to anticipate what was going to be said in committees, because whatever's said in the committee is going to influence the majority of the legislators on that committee. And so I would go to each one of the committee members prior to that and sit down and talk with them about, this is what the bill does, and I talked to them about, that was the job of the Department of Children and Families if you had a parent abusing a child. It wasn't the responsibility of the superintendent to oversee all that. So anyway, we were successful in getting that squelched, and we didn't change the home education law. But in 1991, Lois Frankel, who was a representative from South Florida, now she's a congresswoman, she wanted to make sure that there was no abuse of elders or children or anybody else. And so they wanted to have all of the parents who were going to home educate their children run through the child abuse register to approve them to home educate.
That's very similar to what we've seen recently in Connecticut, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
1991.
Yeah.
1991, that was a thing that happened. Literally, it passed. Passed because in order to be able to follow all the bills, we didn't have the internet. Everything was in paper. And if you weren't in the committee, you didn't know what was in those bills. And it was not in education, which we were following. It was in Health and Human Services.
Right.
And so we didn't know about that bill. And so I was working in Dan Webster's office just to try to keep up with what was going on in the Capitol, because we didn't have any way of doing that other than being present. So it was on the House floor when I heard this bill being discussed, and I thought, oh my goodness, this could be a place where they would put in something regarding home education. And I went to the files and pulled the paper copy of the bill and scrolled through the bill, and there it was. So you say, what's the advocacy work after the bill passes? Well, that's when Craig jumped into action. I called him. I said, oh my goodness, here's what's going on. And so he worked then with the Department of Education to try to come up, because that bill was referred to them into how it's implemented after the bill passes. Sometimes they don't put all the details in the bills, and the departments have to work out the details. So to make a long story short, Craig basically contacted the department and said, if y'all implement this the way you're talking about implementing it, which was running everybody through the child abuse register to give them permission to home educate their children, we're going to sue you. Of course, that was a joke. Really, it was a bluff, because we had no money, and fortunately, Craig was an attorney, so he probably could have pulled it off. But they realized we were serious, and because home educators had been present in the Capitol a lot, they said, well, how would you do that? So he came up with an affidavit that parents would sign and submit to the superintendent. I've never been charged with child abuse, and that is what they use to implement it. But this is what goes on that parents never know about. You know, they didn't, statewide, parents didn't even know that the provision in a bill passed, because we had no way of communication. And it wasn't one of the things that the media was talking about. So quietly behind the scenes, as you do so often, you're working to try to make these bills that pass workable for home education families. And it may be just one parent, as we're seeing now, maybe a handful of parents who their child can't get into the school they want to. Well, the bill passed. It had a grandfather clause that they implemented for this year. But how does that affect the kids that were in schools that are not grandfathered in? And so and you have to talk about that.
I this particular situation is one I was venting to a friend of mine who is an attorney, but he's not familiar with homeschooling. So he's a good friend of mine. So I go to him oftentimes to poke holes in things and, ask him if I'm wrong about something. And so I vented to him this situation. And he said, He said, "Why? Why are you fighting for this? It's just one kid." And I that broke my heart to hear him say that, because I thought this is everything to that kid. Like, in the grand scheme of things, certainly it's one kid, but to him, it's everything. And I don't know. That, to me, it just made me double down. I was like, doggone it, if you don't see the point, then I might be the only guy who does. And this kid, this kid needs that guy in his corner. So it didn't sway me out. It pushed me further in. I appreciate him for his feedback, but oftentimes, we do what we got to do. We ignore.
Well, speaking of that one kid, speaking of the one kid,
Yeah.
if the law had not passed in 1996 to allow home educated students to participate in athletics, we would have never known the name Tim Tebow.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it mattered to one kid.
Mm.
It happened to be a kid that was going to go on and make a name that people knew.
Hard to predict, but yeah.
Who knows? And the bottom line is, a right is a right.
There you go.
It doesn't matter whether it affects one person
right.
or 25 people.
That's right.
You might fight the battle this year for one person, but it's going to affect hundreds of kids that you don't ever even know about, because you've implemented the statute in such a way that the department's going to back you, and the FHSAA is going to know how they have to treat that particular child. It was a battle back in the early days. I mean, huge battle that we fought for. The couple that wanted their band to be able to be judged at the state contest fought for since 1992.
Wow.
The law didn't pass until 96.
Wow.
So some of these battles go on for years, and people don't even realize that we're on top of the rights of children who are being home educated to have the same advantages of those that are in a publicly funded program.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because, that part where you're talking about how time passes, there are things that it breaks my heart we can't win immediately on, that we're constantly having to fight and get someone to care and see the importance of that language change and work it into something they're willing to champion as a part of their bill, and line all of those things up, because it isn't, regardless of what any of the now candidates will tell you, you can't just whip a pin and make things happen. There is a system, there is a process, and that's just part of it. So if there are any promising that, you be very careful, be very watchful, that they need to understand there is a process, and that we have a system of laws, and there is a system at play, and we all agree to that system is important. It's what kind of keeps our society cohesive when everybody's participating in those rules and that system of rules.
And another thing, speaking of candidates, beware of candidates that want to do more for you than you want them to do for you.
Amen to that. Yeah.
Because sometimes we have to fight that as well. They're all enthusiastic about home education, families and children, and they want to make it so visible. Well, we don't really want the Department of Education overseeing our programs any more than they're overseeing. We want them to enforce what's in the law. But please don't help us too much.
In fact,
you just bring more oversight,
That's right. Yeah. The more that we're like, hey, let's make this homeschool. That's what's bothered me about the terminology takeoff of homeschool. I've been listening, I've been seeing, moms and stuff on social media posting their little clips here and there. And we were going to a private school, but now we're going to start a homeschool, and we're going to do our homeschool this way and homeschool that. And I'm like, you don't start a homeschool. It doesn't have anything to do with school at all. In fact, man, that moniker is just really hard to get out from underneath. That we freely educate our own children. like the freedom of education. You freely educate them anywhere and everywhere. We just had a vendor supporter. Thank you, by the way, to our news vendor supporter who came on. I'll talk about them in a minute, but they have been there since the 90s, early 90s, doing field trips and all sorts of educational experiences to travel where, see where their kids' ancestors landed. Go travel up there and go see that and talk about history with your feet on the same ground that their feet hit. Right? Like that is.
I love them. I think I know who you're talking
Yeah.
about. That's my style of home education.
Yeah, that is powerful. That is what a great is. You're not reading about it in a book or watching some AI made video that composites something that it's a facsimile of what it would be if imagined correctly and not hallucinated. It's real. And that is the the freedom to educate way. And it's a challenge to get out from under that moniker, but a lot because of the popularity and the growth of it and the money that's recently come into it. There's a lot of things happening in this perfect storm over the last 5 years that are making challenges for the home education community's identity, who we are and how we do things. Sure, I want all parents to go their own way and do their own thing. If that own thing means a mini program or a micro program or a learning pod or a one-room schoolhouse or a private school, you want to start your own private school and get a bunch of people together at your church and by all means, do all of those things. Like education shouldn't belong to one systematic monopoly. It should belong to anybody who's capable of improving those children and teaching them the things, period. But home education, the parental right to educate your own children is exactly that. The right of you, the parent, to take your children and educate them yourselves. And that's got to be pulled out and stood on. And oftentimes people have great ideas. I can think of some Republican representatives and senators who have some great ideas about how to, make it more popular and more accessible and more. And I'm like, that's all good. We really just want it all to be left alone, though. Like at the end of the day.
Yeah, just do your own thing. Don't try to change the law.
Yeah. At the end of the day, less is more.
Enough.
Yeah. Less is more.
It's worked for 40 years. Don't tweak it.
Yeah. So, anywho, there's a lot of relationship building and there's a lot of advocacy that happens, and some of the advocacy unfortunately burns bridges. I think I may have called some chips in for this kid and burnt some relationships. I hope not. I hope that at the end of the day, the storm and the cloud passes and we can all smile. But I think that some people might turn their head when they see me coming at the Capitol. I'll be like, hey, and they'll be like, not that guy. But that, you know what? It is what it is. I think
they usually get over it.
Yeah, eventually. I think it will be worth it. This particular situation that we are alluding to, there's a young guy who was playing at a private school, not a homeschool student, not a home education student. He was playing at a private school, enrolled at the private school. And his brother is older than him, but graduated, and his brother was his ride to the private school. And they lived about an hour away. This particular private school is like right on the county line. So when you look at the map, they're sourcing students from this side and that side. So it's really problematic. The new update to the statute's a little problematic for this private school because when you look at who you could pull your population from in a radius, half of their radius is now, kind of locked out unless they're grandfathered in. So that's a bit of a challenge for them. And this student with that hour drive was going to have a hard time figuring out. So the parents thought, well, maybe because the dad is also one of the assistant coaches, he can make the travel for practice, but he can't make the travel and for the 1 hour drive in the morning to drive his son to the academic portion. And so trying to figure out the logistics of all of that, they thought, well, why don't we switched to PEP because they were getting a private school scholarship. That's the other avenue, is that they were only able to afford it because of the scholarship. And so they thought, well, why don't we try PEP? Well, as everybody knows, PEP immediately was filled up, almost immediately. And so the chances of getting that were slim. They didn't get it. And so now they're scrambling to figure out, well, even if we wanted to go back to the private school, we can't afford it. But they're fully intending to try to get back to the private school. So in the meantime, they're home education. Well, because they changed their enrollment status, they were ruled to not be eligible for the grandfather provision. And so what people have to understand is that this grandfather provision isn't really written down anywhere. It isn't that the FHSAA presented language like they do in committees and said, here's the bylaw, here's the provision, here's exactly what it states, here's exactly how we'll execute it, and adopted it in. It's a bit more of a verbal agreement that they just said, okay, cool, we'll consider those who have been rostered last year to be rostered this year, and they can play. So as you can imagine, many ways of talking about it kind of emerge, and it can get very confusing really quick when there's no standard that it says to do this, do this. So that's how I've been arguing. It says this, do this. But the only thing I have to point to are the interviews that were given at that time from the executive director and others, mostly the executive director, and how he explained how it would roll out. So I'm just trying to hold them accountable to that. And so far, those conversations have been great. He's been very workable and trying to be understanding, but also being very careful and cautious about creating so many exceptions that, now everything's an exception. And I'm like, this is pretty clear. This should be the kid was playing, he was rostered, circumstances shifted out of his control. Now he still wants to play, dad's still coach. He does have transportation to that, but not to the other part. And they're trying to figure that part out. And when they do, they've told me that they're going to go back to that private school. So what gives? And just having to fight really hard for this kid to be able to play. I think we will get it. I think we'll cooler heads will prevail. I've spoken with both of the sponsors of the bill, the original bill. So gathering information on intent in order to make a case, especially when there's nothing to point to that's very clear in the language, but gathering, conversation and getting them to weigh in and the understanding of the circumstances. I've talked with those at the DOE and getting them to weigh in on, when they asked for the grandfather provision, what did that mean? And it's really just about trying to massage all of the relationships, but also forcefully get people to not just brush you off and say, no. And so this
is the implementation after session that people have no idea takes up so much time. And it's the advocacy that we do for individual students constantly because home educators just don't fit the norm.
Yeah.
And so almost everything that we do is outside of the way the institutional educational programs work.
And
so it's pretty clear. You can draw lines for the public school.
Yeah.
Private schools are a little different because they don't have zones.
That's right.
But what the legislature was trying, what's that?
No, go ahead.
So what the legislators tried to do was to make everything uniform this year.
Yes.
With all across the board. Well, home educators aren't uniform in any sense of the word.
Nope.
So I venture to think that in a year or two, after we gather all of these problems that have been caused because of this bill, that they'll come back and tweak it.
Probably. To
make it work for home education students. Now, if parents go to the polls and send us home educated families to come and serve in the legislature, that possibility is a lot greater than if we don't have home educated legislators.
That's right. Yeah. So I don't know if you can see this, probably not. It says for hard days. So
I see that.
I have this manila envelope that I saved, and then I keep very rarely, but sometimes I get a letter from one of the students, and they're saying thank you, or they're kind of telling me how meaningful it was, for them to be able to get access to either the sport or that extracurricular or the club, or to have someone in their corner. And so I save those for hard days because, man, I don't know if it's the doctor thing where, doctors only see sick people. So maybe you start to think that the world is just sick. But like
Right.
it's easy to kind of fall into that pit where like you're constantly fighting over problems and challenges, and so you think that's all there is. Um so I save those. I save those. And there's a handful. There's not like a million of them in there. There's a handful because sometimes people do circle back and say thanks, and it's so powerful. It carries weight. So if you're a young person out there, listen to me. Handwriting is important to learn in school when you're doing your learning, because those handwritten notes, the weight they carry, the the energy that they're able to give to someone to push on to that next kid who somebody else is going to look at and go, it's just one kid. Why bother? Let them just go somewhere else. Let them just do something else. It carries over. It makes a difference. It provides the fuel needed and the motivation needed to push through for one more kid, one more kid, one more student. The rights are important, and to keep that North Star in focus. So thank you to those of you who have written those. Like, thank you for those because they matter a lot. uh, I'm sure you've got some too from the years that you've done it, decades that you've done it.
Like the doctors over the years, the only ones we heard from were the ones that had problems.
Yeah.
So you have to realize why you're doing what you're doing. And even though there's one kid out there that matters,
Yep.
your motivation is for all the kids. And whether you get thank yous or not,
That's right.
you're going to do what you do because you got a call from the Lord to do this.
That's right.
And He's the one you're going to have to answer to.
Yeah.
So when I pass the torch, that sounds exciting. We're going to run and we're going to be free. However, what I passed to you was an
A
anvil
load.
that
Yeah.
you carry on your back
Yeah.
because it does matter
Yeah.
for one kid, and you fight just as hard for
Yep.
that one kid. It's a different kind of fight, but it's the implementation of bills that pass that are not clear on how it's going to be put into practice. So
Yeah. 100%.
thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that.
Yes, ma'am. Of course. It's your legacy. You've started it, and all I can do is just keep trying to make it happen. It's a beautiful thing to be a part of. I'm very grateful. Very grateful for you. So, for sure.
And you probably understand it more than the majority of people because you know all the battles that never get to the public light. And
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I've seen.
one day we'll talk about the battle that home education families never knew that would have affected them is the implementation of the VPK, when the intent of those that pushed it was for it to be universal kindergarten, where they would have basically lowered the compulsory attendance and you could only do it in a public school.
Interesting. Yeah, we will need to talk about that at some point. Yes, now that you bring that up.
Those that you don't think are going to affect home educators do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway,
100%. The other end of that though is that a lot of those things, as we get wind of it, we're jumping on, while we're also keeping tabs on what's going on in the different counties and with the different implementations. And a lot of times, man, the stuff like the website or the social media, the why the donation match challenge is so important to us to spend that month really trying to get the message out and let people know what we do is because to grow we need help. We live in a different time, and I remember growing up in the 80s and 90s. It was just slower. It really was. You ride your bike places. You stopped at a payphone to call someone, right? You looked up directions in a map in the glove box or you stopped at the gas station to ask for them. Like, these are just signs of the times. It was just different. It was slower. It truly was. And in order to keep up nowadays, you have to have a communication game. You have to have a communication plan. And we do, but it's all run by me. And I look forward to the day where we can kind of expand. We have an intern who's been volunteering his time. He's doing a great job making the videos. If you've seen them, tell him thank you. Go into the comments on some of those small videos and tell him he's doing a good job and tell him thank you. Those are not necessarily me all the time. We share the load, but he's learning and he's doing a great job. And I want to see him, keep honing his skills. But we need more. We need more. Something that's dawned on me when we embarked on trying to invite the candidates for governor to kind of talk about home education issues, because I didn't see anybody really dialing in on just home education and parental rights. And I wanted to see them answer some questions. So we, in order to be fair and not be partisan or pick a particular candidate, we invited them all. And in doing that, they didn't all say yes and come. We had two that came. It was Paul Renner and Byron Donalds, and they answered the questions, and we aired those interviews, and we've been making clips from those. But I was kind of remarking to, I don't remember who it was the other day. I know I'd said this to you, I think today, but if they had all said yes, and if they had all come and we were cutting clips from all of their videos, I would not be sane right now. I wouldn't be able to breathe.
No food.
No, because the amount of work just getting these done is a lot. And if there were a lot of candidates that we invited, and if they had all said yes, and we all came and did their 20-minute clips, and they all needed to be clipped, because I still have parents showing up who haven't seen us before, and they're discovering us from these reels that are popping up. Well, why didn't you interview any other candidates? Or are you just supporting this candidate? It's like, no, we're not. And we made an article about it, and you should go check out the article. And there's a lot of information. We just want parents to have information and some direct questions about home education that we wanted to ask. And man, even that, keeping up with the comments is full time. And the advocacy, throw in the advocacy work and the bill writing and the where we're going with all the other stuff. It's a lot. I can see why when I came on to help you with the website at the beginning, it was in the situation it was in, because you just didn't have the time to put any of that in focus. It's a lot. And so growing and expanding, hopefully we will get to that point where we are fully funded, and then we can move that into building out, a communication team to help us with things like that. Right now, in a lot of ways, I've built tools that keep us automated a little bit with some of these things, but automation still has to be babysat. Like, if you've automated anything, it still has to be babysat. There's no room for any hallucinations or errors or tweaks. Man, I do another podcast, and just last week something happened with the software in between them, and it was kaput. And going back and having to do it manually, we went down that day. And so trying not to do things like that it's a lot of work, and people may not realize it, and that's okay. But we do need the support. It is not something that is for us optional. It's just we do the work one way or the other, but it's the hard reality is that without support, very difficult to do what we do.
And Jason has 5 children, and so they deserve his time rather than spending 100% of it trying to get information out to homeschoolers. So if you can have grandparents who have finished homeschooling or who have been so thrilled about what you're doing with your children, join us. They probably have more opportunity to support, and they're seeing the results of what we do in their children and grandchildren. So it is so important. Sometimes we just put the burden on the parents who are
Sure.
trying to do the home education, but my goodness, let's draw in aunts and uncles who support the cause, grandparents who've seen the results. Um, this is something that if we don't have a representative in the Capitol, your rights could be gone in a session. And the only way you're going to know about it is if you're tuned in to the communication system that Jason has set up. I can't tell you back in the day when we didn't even have cell phones, Craig and I would call people at 3 o'clock in the morning because we had landlines, but we knew a few people that would step up to the plate and either come to the Capitol or would make telephone calls at 8 o'clock in the morning voicing their opinion.
Yeah.
But all of that takes so much time.
Yes, it does.
And now that we have somebody that understands how to communicate, marketing is Jason's background, but it isn't something as he's described that just, you just put it in and that's it. It takes a lot of time. And so his time needs to be valued and people need to support.
Yeah. And I'll say thank you. We've got a couple of dads who help out in our Discord. So if you don't know, Discord, we have a Discord channel, server. And in that server, we have a channel for every county in there as issues arise. Parents still don't know about this tool that we put together. And I think it's important that they know because, recently in Pasco County, there was something that they implemented as a change in their county to require parents to do. And a million, tons of parents are asking about it. And they're all over the place. In our Discord server, when we answer questions, it's a requirement in the rules of the server for people to cite sources. So if they give an answer or they cite a source or they say something in response to a parent, they need to have a link that shows where that came from, a handbook or a statute or a memo, something that parents can know and trust that the information is valid. I think that's very important. Beyond that, we've got a couple of dads. There's a dad in Alachua County who's doing a great job. He follows the school board meetings out there to keep on tabs on tops of things. And he advocates for home education and parents' rights in the local community. And he reports back whenever things like that are being voted on in the school board meetings in Alachua. And there was another dad, I think, in Lee County that's kind of stepped up recently, and he's taking that role on over there. And so having people do that in helping us keep tabs on things is huge, huge. I know I've had parents from different counties calling me and emailing in asking if, they can start charging fees for PEP students to be able to play sports at their school when they weren't charging them before. The answer to that is yes. Actually, as a part of Senate Bill 538 that was implemented with the increase in the coach pay and the uniform changes to the students' participation in sports, one of the things that they added was a part of the statute where the school can assess fees to students who are not enrolled in the school. PEP student is not enrolled in the school. The exception to that would be a home education student because the county can still, in certain circumstances, draw down funds from the school can still draw down funds from the county for some of those things. And so they cannot do that at all for PEP students. All of the funds for a PEP student sit with the SFO. And so in order for them to go and some of the counties thought they didn't have permission to assess fees at all. And some of the counties thought, well, we can, but there's not much in here. So what fees do we charge? So they gave them permission to, and they put a cap on it. And some counties are voting on their own fees, and other counties just went straight to cap. And, it is what it is. But as a parent in one of those counties, there is a process to that. You have the right to show up at the school board meeting where they're voting on this because they are not able to simply assess fees. They have to go through a process. They must become an action item in the school board meeting. They must be voted on. And then after they are voted on and adopted, they have to go live to the website. Now, they're supposed to go live to the website by July 1st, but because the bill became effective July 1st, there's a grace period for rolling that out for the first year, which is understandable. But if they don't go through the process, they can't just simply charge fees. So understanding what that process is, being in our Discord where we help parents walk through these types of things in your county. And then if you want to get a group of parents together to go to that school board meeting where they're voting on it, that is something that can be coordinated, through these tools that we put together. So, and none of this costs you anything. These are all tools that are free. So maybe that's a very roundabout way of explaining what Discord does and what some of the communication strategies that we've been trying to put together are there that can benefit parents. But it's all very good.
Hey,
yes, ma'am.
I think you said we had a new supporter.
We do.
We're running out of time.
We are.
I want to hear who that is.
We are. Let's get there. We want to say a special thank you to Northwinds Institute. That is northwindsinstitute.com, and you'll see them up on our website. I'll show you where on our website, if you go to our recognition wall, so it's flhef.org, we have a recognition wall, and in that recognition wall, you can see all of the programs. We call them vendors, but they are program offerers, everything from testing or evaluations or helpful tutoring or come alongsides. There are a lot of programs here that are helpful to the home education community and support the work that we do. I will say this, it is not very difficult to become one of them. So if you're interested, this would go a long way to helping us reach our goal for our donation match challenge. But we're very thankful. By the end of the day today, we're going to have Northwinds Institute added to our wall. They've been running into some very real challenges in their community with being reported for the types of program offers that they get reimbursed, because there are things like food and travel that are not covered, but they require the parents to pay for their own food and travel. It's the educational portion of the excursion and the experience that they provide, and I think that they make that very clear. But there are some people out there who just don't want to see them do well, even though they've been around since 1991. They've been around for a long time, and they've been doing the home education thing, the home education way, for a long time. And I guess it just burned some people the wrong way that we would have the freedom to educate the way that we do. But man, yeah, as long as those funds are being spent on eligible things and not on food and overnight stays or travel expenses, then absolutely those education programs and those field trip programs are valid expenses, and they should be. Absolutely. So we look forward to working with them to highlight some of those issues and advocate for them, as well as the way that they serve the community, seeing some of those kids thrive, So thank you for joining us. And that's who you thought it was going to be, Brenda, I think. Right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good to see some of those old school connections.
We did a lot of that on our own as as a family, but it would have been fun if we'd had other families join us in some of those experiences.
Absolutely.
So, yes.
Yeah, and she remembered you.
Off to them.
Yeah, she remembered you, but she didn't know what we had grown into or what we were doing. And as I spent time with her and we talked the other day, it was a great conversation, and we're glad that they came on as a supporter. So thank you very much, Northwinds. All right.
Are we going to get to see the coin?
Yes. Oh, you didn't see it yet, but I had put it up.
I didn't see it.
I did.
Okay.
I'll send it to you after we're done, because I don't know how to get it live for you to see. But yeah.
Okay.
It's exciting. We'll go, you know what? Since we're wrapping up, is there anything that you want to say? Because I show the coin again at the end.
Oh, okay. No, but I just would encourage people to share it, their support groups and the Discord, with your families, any way to support the work that we're doing, because you would not have the freedom that you have today had there not been somebody fighting for your rights. And we're still fighting for your rights. And Jason is taking over after 40 years. I really needed to retire.
Yeah.
And I'm just so grateful for him, but we do need to support him in every way possible.
Yeah, there's a lot of things people don't know about until the change is already made. It's important having that person be proactively involved ahead of the curve before those things get there. And that person historically has been you, the parent's voice in the Capitol. And I'm so thankful for all the years, the decades that you did it. And I look forward to serving as well. So, and we're thankful for Arete, FPEA, Fisher Precious Metals, and TBHC Group for being our top sponsors. And Brenda, here it is. I guess you can't see it still. But thank you to parents of the free state of Florida for all the work that you put into everything that you do with your children, the way that you teach them, you take back the mantle of parent rights and the responsibility and duties of raising your own children, setting your own standards, and doing it your own way. We applaud you, and we are here to advocate for you. And if you need something, reach out to us. Our Discord is there, absolutely, and we're very thankful for your support. And without anything further, enjoy your Monday, August 10th, 2026. All right.